What's up, Pleasantville? We are here today with W. Paul Alvarez, and he has so many parts that are related to Pleasantville. And I really wanted you guys to meet him and hear about this really interesting resident that we have here, who actually is from Pleasantville. So, hello, Paul.
Hi, nice. Thank you for coming by. I appreciate PCTV coming by here. I'm really glad to, I love your segments, so this will be great to be a part of it.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you. Okay, so W. Paul Alvarez, what's the W?
Washington. So
okay.
my first name is Washington, but my mom always liked my middle name more, which is Paul. My dad's also Washington, so she was like, we're always going to call him Paul, and that's how it goes. But I do know and I acknowledge my first name, so I always like to keep the W there. It's kind of like when you hear like J.J. Wentworth, I always like the W, so I don't mind people calling me Paul, but if it's something like legal or I introduce myself, I'll say I'm W. Paul Alvarez. That's what I'm used to.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I get that.
So that's the Washington.
Nice. Okay, so Paul and I were just talking, and he was born in Ecuador. Will you tell me a little about how you guys emigrated to Pleasantville?
Absolutely. So we have I think a good story to show about the American dream. I mean, we immigrated, my father, my mother, and I immigrated at different times starting in 1989. My father came here first, and then my mother came, I think it was about in 1991, and I came in 1992. And we came, we didn't have status here. So we came really looking for an American dream, looking for opportunities. My parents had me when they were really young. My mom was 16 years old. My dad was 19. So things were difficult for us back in Ecuador. But, my father made the sacrifice to come here first. And then once he got established, he came and actually lived in Pleasantville. He lived on Tompkins.
How did he end up in Pleasantville? That's such a...
He had, his brother was here first.
Okay.
His brother Walter was here first. I think they had a friend that someone ended up finding Pleasantville, and there wasn't that many people. It was only one house of Spanish speaking. It was all men that lived. I think one woman lived in Tompkins in a house, and that's how small the community was of Latinos really in Pleasantville. So eventually, then my mom came, and then I came. So I came when I was in 4th grade to BRS, and I remember it was really great. I had a really good experience because everyone was really accepting. I had a really good opportunity because at that time there were no other students that needed ESL language help or anything like that. So I had a one-on-one. So I was able to really be immersed in learning English. And I just remember loving, and in comparison, the differences to being in a third world country to then being able to live in the United States, it was just amazing. I mean, the streets were safe. I remember riding my bike around the village and, being able to go to Archie's Corner Store and getting some bubble gum and things like that. And there used to be a comic store called Adventure Inc. that was really cool. And that got me to learn to read because I would go buy comics there. And then, there's a toy store called Try and Buy. So it felt really awesome. And I really felt safe, and I enjoyed school, and that it was just a great time, and everyone treated me well. So I had a really good welcoming into the village of Pleasantville. So that was in 4th grade.
I would love to hear a little more about that and your family, but I'm going to just jump ahead to the fact that Pleasantville is still so much like that, and you must enjoy the fact that you have kids here now too, that they get to be in a safe place, that they get to ride their bikes around. And I mean, you see all these guys riding their bikes and dumping them on the lawn, and there's no worry about someone's going to snatch their bike. And I don't know, it's just that's one thing that I love about coming from LA and the city, and having that. There's always that element of not feeling safe.
Yeah, so, I mean, and I think that there's a lot of change that happens, and change will happen. That's just part of life. And I remember, even if we go back when I was growing up here, for example, when we were going to get a subway on Wheeler Avenue, it was a big deal. It was like you thought the world was going to end,
right?
And it didn't. We had it there, and then it's not there anymore. Now we have the seafood market there, but even though there's been a lot of change, and there will be change, but I think the feel of Pleasantville, of being like a neighborly town where we support each other, where our kids can grow up, that doesn't have to change. It doesn't matter, even if the dynamic of Pleasantville changes and the infrastructure, but the actual feeling of, we support our teams. Like, for example, our Pleasantville varsity football team that, got second place in the state, but that was amazing. Crazy. The support up to that game was amazing. The whole town coming out, receiving the boys when they came back from, whether it was a win or a loss at their last loss. That was their only loss. Yeah. Everyone was there. And so that doesn't get lost. There's a lot of talk of Pleasantville's changing. It's a different place, but there's still so much that it is the same as the past. And there's so much more that really we have more in common than not. And people sometimes, I think, forget that. So I love the fact that that's the reason why I was raised here, and then I knew that this is the only place where I wanted to raise my family eventually. So I bought a house in Pleasantville, and now my kids are going to be going to school in Pleasantville. So those are all things that I definitely wanted because they were based on my experiences that I had here.
Right, and you had the experience of what it was like in Ecuador that you have memories from it to know the difference of what it's like. So
exactly, I'm very blessed.
So your dad ended up coming here, and then your mom, and then your dad worked. You said he worked at a deli.
Yeah. So my father worked at a deli. It was on Wheeler Avenue. It's where the Black Cow is now. It used to be called the Country Manor. And back then, just to give a little history of immigration law changed very significantly in 1996, 97. But before that, there were different rules. People could essentially have an employer, even if you had been in this country unlawfully, you could have an employer to sponsor you, and you could get legalization that way. So my father was able to do that. He was sponsored he started working as a dishwasher at that deli, and eventually was taught to be the chef of the deli. So that's what his expertise was. He was a chef. He was a skilled worker. And through that aspect is what we were able to get a work permit. And then eventually with a work permit, you get a social security, and then you can get things like a driver's license, things like that. So for us, it was a huge thing when my father was able to get that to happen, because I was about 2 months away from turning 16 years old, and all my friends were excited about getting their driver's permit. And I remember not knowing whether I'd be able to do that because I didn't have a social security card.
Right.
So, being able to get it like a month before I turned 16 was amazing. It was like a godsend. So that was great. And then that's going through the process of that and seeing how important a work permit is to somebody is what started to kind of, I think, plant the seed of like, I wish I could help people do this, like help them achieve the American dream, because I saw how amazing it was just to have a little thing that was just a work permit. It wasn't even a green card yet at that point. So that happened when I was about to be 16. When I was 17, I was able to get a green card, it gives you permanent resident status. Even though it says permanent resident, it doesn't mean that it's permanent resident. It can be taken away from you. You have to renew it. So you're not here lawfully fully until you're a citizen. Once you're a citizen, you really won't lose. It's very difficult to lose that status. But as a permanent resident, you could still lose it for either if you have an arrest or there's different things that you could lose it, and you have to continue to renew it, and there's a lot of things that you have to do with it. So it's almost like you're on probation kind of thing. So I had it for 5 years. The rule is generally you have to wait 5 years to become a citizen. Unless you married someone, you could do it in 3 years. So because I got it through my father, 5 years later, when I was I think 21 years old, is when I became a U.S. citizen. So I went through that process. I lived in the U.S. since 1992, and I was 9 years old. And when I became a citizen was when I was 21. So through that time, we had different attorneys. We went through different ones, but I saw, and I think that's really where the passion for me wanting to do this came, because I saw that attorneys were helping people achieve a dream.
Yeah, for sure. So that's one thing we should at least tell them, is that you are an immigration attorney. That's your by trade. However, you have all of these other skills that I've been learning about, which is super fun. But I think for me, it's so fascinating too, because I grew up with this privilege in California, and my mom was a contractor. And so I ended up having all the guys that came, most of the guys that worked for her were from Guatemala. So one guy worked for her and he became part of our family, and then his family came and she ended up sponsoring quite a few people.
Nice.
So I watched it on the other side, and to actually, that also makes me want to do, like, what can I do to help, to help immigrants obtain legal status so that they don't live in fear being here. And unfortunately, when we had so much stuff going on with, the previous president and even before that, I mean, it's so much of the immigration stuff has been so challenging lately. I mean, you must be just bombarded with business.
Yes, it's one of those kind of things where, it's good to have business, but a lot of time it's difficult because there's a lot of times that I take a lot of different cases. So I practice in immigration removal. So when someone's essentially in deportation removal proceedings, where if you lose your case, you're going to be ordered removed. So there's a lot riding on it. And it becomes really difficult at times because there's times that there is no law that can help us. The laws, like I said, significantly changed after the late 90s, that there hasn't been a major reform. People think that something like DACA, which is a special privilege that was given to minors, young people, that was an executive action that was done by President Obama. So that wasn't actually a law, so that's why it's been challenged, and it's still kind of in the air in some parts. So, it is challenging in that the job that I work on really is driven depending on the administration and how the laws are going. And I'm not to criticize any of the different administrations. We've had struggles with every one of them in a very different way.
Sure.
So, that's just the name of the game, that what I practice and what I do. But it is good to know that there are a lot of people that are getting help.
Right.
And we are able to make that American dream happen.
Right.
And especially having gone through the system myself, it's rewarding to be able to do that. I can really touch one-on-one with my clients because I understand their struggles, I understand their fears, their concerns, and it lets me really be one with them and helping them. Even if I can't help them achieve their ultimate goal, I can at least be there, a guiding hand and helping them.
Sure.
So
it must be heartbreaking though when those moments happen where you've done what you can and it's not enough, and you have to say goodbye.
Yeah, it is. And then we obviously we have appeals, things like that.
Sure.
It's been it's strange in ways. I mean, right now, because since the pandemic happened, all of our trials are done virtually. So I have my trials right here, which is, for me, it's been a blessing because I think my clients have become more comfortable just being here because it's like we're on our home. Our home turf fighting a case.
Right.
They're not going through court, security. They're not, I've had moments where someone had to excuse themselves because they were very emotional. I have a bathroom right here that they can just go to very quickly.
Yeah.
So that's helped. And, being able just to talk to clients in that way and have them be more comfortable. Like I said, even if they get the worst, outcome, they still know that we tried our best and that they had a chance to actually do something. So that's been that part of the job that, it's difficult, but it has so much, it's so rewarding as well. So it comes with both things.
What do you recommend for people that don't have legal status, that they want it, obviously they want to be here legally, they want it, they want to feel safe in our country, then they have special skills or whatever it is, but they don't have a lot of money. I mean, the process of becoming a legal resident sounds so expensive.
So I would say the first thing is doing consultations with an attorney is the best thing you can do.
Anyway.
Because usually a consultation is not going to be that much.
Okay.
So if it's a paid attorney, there's also, for example, in Mount Kisco, there's a group called Neighbors Link.
Yes.
Neighbors Link does consultations. They have an attorney who I believe is on there on Fridays who does consultations. So just to get an idea of what you can do. A lot of times there might not be anything you could do, but at least they'll get you prepared in, like, for example, filing taxes, getting documentations to show that you've been in the country for a certain amount of time, things like that. So I would say, get some guidance on what you can do. And to people who want to help, because there's a lot of people out there that just don't know. Sure. I mean, you hear they should do it the right way.
Yeah.
Comment
Right.
and people don't understand
What is the
that.
right
What is
way?
the right
How do
way?
you start?
There is sometimes
Yes.
there is no right way
Right.
because there's nothing available, because
Right.
there's a lot more of a bureaucracy that has to change. And so
Sure.
I think it's important also for someone that is in the US and maybe doesn't understand, like, look into it a little more. There's so much research on it, and I always will talk to anyone that's willing to listen about just explaining, as someone who has been on both ends of it, and someone who can really explain to you that, how the law really works, and that it's not that simple. It's not that easy. So I think that's also
and
important.
it's fluid. It's changing
Oh my
constantly.
goodness. It's
So
all the time,
yeah, that's
all the time.
that's rough.
That's why with a lot of in our field, a lot of prior attorneys who've had experience, years of working, a lot of time it doesn't matter in this field because literally the laws are changing all the time.
Right.
So if you're not keeping up to date,
Yeah.
you're just not going to be able to practice well in this
Right.
field, because there's
Right.
just, it doesn't go with the whole, like, I've been doing this for many years. No, it doesn't happen, because this is a
Exactly.
brand new law.
That's
Everyone's in the same game.
Right.
Right
Well,
there.
isn't it funny? I mean, we talk about Pleasantville as evolving as well in its own town and its own culture and community. And the reality is the one thing that is constant is change. I mean,
Yeah,
in law, in medicine,
and everything.
in construction,
Right.
in safety. I mean, I just, I think that's one thing that I really feel like in Pleasantville that we can actually try to be kind to each other, in the sense that I realize that it doesn't look the same that it did 20 years ago. But like you said, the feel is so similar,
Right.
of that welcoming community. And that's the part that we want to keep.
That's the drive. Yeah,
That's what we
the
wanna hold
nucleus
on
of
to.
what I think makes Pleasantville what it is.
Right.
Is that we can keep that.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of leads me into my segue of your other positions in town. I mean, first, you may not know this, but Paul has a spot on our board at PCTV as our village liaison.
Yeah.
And that means that he essentially goes to the Pleasantville Board of Trustees and is a sort of the go-between, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
But you also were voted onto the Board of Trustees in the village as well.
Correct. Yeah.
So and you're vice president of the Chamber of Commerce. I mean, this dude is involved. How do you find the time in the day to get all of this stuff done and do it so successfully? Because you seem so present and available, and I really appreciate that.
A lot of it, it's just time management. I try to really manage my time very well in what I'm doing. I also try to, not say yes to everything. A lot of times it's hard to do that, but I try to really give the right amount of time. And I think, but the most important part, the biggest secret, is the support group that I have between my family, my parents, my wife. Without them, and my sister, my grandparents, my immediate family in general, without them, I don't think any of this would be possible.
Right.
I think also my friends, I have a lot of supportive friends. And then in my business, my staff is
for
amazing.
sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
without them, I couldn't run this business. So that allows me to be able to kind of, sometimes take a break from one thing and go to another real quickly, and then go back. And so I do it that way.
Are you a list maker?
I do.
Yeah.
I do digital lists now.
Me
I
too.
used to do on paper, but yeah.
Yeah, me
Sometimes I do lists within lists.
too. Me too.
So it'll be like, here's a major list, and today we'll do the
break
list
it
of
down,
that.
break it
Yeah,
down.
'cause
Yes.
Sometimes, but it's hard. Sometimes,
Yeah.
it's exhausting, but
Your family must be so proud of you, though, because it's such a value system for them that they came here and have achieved within their own business of Alvarez cleaning and home services, right? And then to have you be there representing the Latino Latinx population here. And do you do other immigrants from other countries as well? I mean, the law is the law essentially for immigrants.
I have a spectrum of my roster of clients vary from South America to Asia. I've had some from Africa, so absolutely.
And also too with like Afghanistan and Syria, and now the Ukraine.
I've had a few of all different types. I have a client of mine who's from Ukraine.
Yeah.
Currently, right now, so it's it's something that I represent everyone really that needs immigration services. Happens to be generally that the majority of my clientele are Spanish speaking because they're just comfortable with that way.
Yes.
So, that's my big clientele. I would say probably 85%, but there is that other 15 that are from different countries, and it's fun. I like to do. I'll do a lot of times. I've done some asylum cases from Nepal, and those are really interesting.
Wow.
There was a big conflict. There was a civil war in Nepal that happened in the early 2000s, and that created a really big problem. And a lot of refugees came. They were given what's called temporary protective status, and then I fought a lot of asylum cases like that. So those are interesting too. Those are political asylum, and there's a lot of trials that are happening.
Sure. That's intense. And it must have been so crazy during the beginning of the pandemic too, when everything just shut down.
It was the scariest time ever.
Yeah.
The immigration court here in New York shut down completely from, I think it was March 18th till March 18th, 2020 till July 6th of 2021. And the worst part of it was that it was like, hey, we're going to be shut down. They were like, hey, we're going to shut down for 30 days. And then on day 29, they'd be like, we're going to shut down for 30 more days. So we would be getting ready for trials constantly, and then they would get canceled.
Right.
So it was incredibly
And what you think is
frustrating.
like, well, it's a delay. You have a little more time to prepare for your trial. But what about those people that are detained?
Right.
Those people that are away from their families, and the fear of also getting sick while you're detained. I mean, what a nightmare.
So for people who are detained, those did go forward. Those cases did go forward for detained. Yes, those did. But I actually I'm more focused on people who are not detained because it's just a different part of our law services in general, immigration attorneys. It takes a lot more to do detained and that you have to go see them all the time.
Sure.
So I refer to one of my colleagues that does those. So that court still happened, but going back to your point, you're 100% right in that. For example, evidence gets stale. Yeah. There's cases where children age out. There's cases that so many different things. People are waiting. They've been waiting for years, and they're going to wait longer. So absolutely, there's been times where there's a case that I do that's called cancellation of removal. That's for people that are in removal proceedings. One of the requirements for that case is that your child must be under the age of 21. So I've had some cases that in that time, the kids aged out. So now we lost completely that form of relief.
And they didn't do any grandfathering in or any of that. God, that's so...
And they were like, sorry, it's not our fault. It's a pandemic and we were closed. So, those become the most difficult kind of cases where I have to tell someone it's nobody's fault, and try to see if there's anything else we can do. Yeah. So, it's not to put it on a somber situation. It's a mess. It's not. I mean, there's a lot of good things.
Joy. You bring a lot of joy.
There's a lot of stuff
I can see that. Yeah. I'm so excited for you. Okay. So what do you do for fun? I mean, you've got all this stuff going on. So how do you keep in shape?
So I love soccer. I'm a big fan of soccer. So I play at least 3 times a week, play competitively at least once a week in some kind of league always. Cool. That's really helped me a lot. And that not only helps me to stay in shape, but it also just helps me, in my mentality.
Mental health, yes, of course.
Because sometimes it's just those days that you have really stress, it just get it out on the field and you just feel 100 times better. So,
yeah, for sure.
I play soccer.
You also coach. That's fun.
I coach my son's soccer team and his T-ball team.
That's cute.
I play the drums. I play in a band.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, so
what kind of music?
We cover. It's like a cover band. So we do all different types. So we've done some. We've done things like the Cranberries. Then we've done some songs like alternative rock, like. We've done Radiohead, Cranberries, Oasis. So we vary.
That's fun. Yeah. Have you ever played at Lucy's?
We haven't yet.
Okay.
We haven't because when we established a band during COVID because one of my buddies, he was not really working because he was in a school and he had a lot of off days. So he decided to learn how to play the guitar. And he taught himself how to play the guitar. And then we decided to do a band because I've always played the drums since I learned in 4th grade. That's when I started playing. In the marching band and everything. In high school I played.
That's cool.
So my buddy said, let's jam. And then we made a band. So Lucy's wasn't around really when we started. So. Sure. And then we took a hiatus because one of our singers was going to move away, but then she came back. So now, we're looking to definitely.
So where do you
make
keep your drum kit, and where do you rehearse?
In my basement, but our bassist, he has a studio in his basement. He has a drum set there.
Oh,
so
okay,
that's where we
perfect.
rehearse.
Yeah. Nice.
So
All right.
We'll see if we can do something fun.
Are your
this
kids
summer.
musical? Does your son play, or your daughter, or your little daughter get out there with
They're both obsessed with the drums because they're there.
Of course.
So they're always playing with them. I got Brendan a little drum set, but he doesn't care. He wants to play in the big drum set.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think now I'm going to get him some lessons
That's
here locally
so
at the
fun.
local. There's a local a new member, Cortland. I think it's the Cortland School of Music, and Carol, I believe she lived in Pleasantville, and she has now. She doesn't live anymore, but she brought a business here. She has, I think, other places as well. I think this is a third place, but it's on Marble Avenue. We did the ribbon cutting for her last summer.
Okay.
But she's got and she was a resident here of Pleasantville, and she has a couple of different music schools. So looking to enroll my son into that.
That's so fun.
And that's kind of like what I feel is big for me. That why I love this village is because, and why I also ran for politics here is because I'm engulfed in this and that. I not only care obviously about my family, but I care about the village in itself. And I love to support small business, and a lot of our small businesses here are owned by residents.
Right.
So you can go down the street and go into a business and say, "Hey, did you talk about school or something with your kids?" And everyone's aware, and
they're your neighbor.
Yeah. And that's, I think, something special that you don't really see in too many places. And
I think that for me, I understand what you're doing with being a trustee, with being on PCTV, with being on the chamber, because I felt like that's one of the reasons why we're doing What's Up Pleasantville, frankly, is the idea of this overreaching community, that we have all these little parts, and how can we connect all these parts together? How can we connect the for-profit businesses, the non-profit businesses, even like the schools, the music schools, the just interesting people that we have in town, and restaurants. So how can we sort of show everyone our support and and put our money and where our mouth is, kind of thing. Right. So, and I know that being on the PCTV board with me and everyone else, I really feel like that's something that we're hoping to do also. And I really admire that oh my God, you're doing so much. And why I joined the chamber as well, because I feel like that's, even for my real estate business, I feel like that's, I don't know, just we're part of this community, and and the way that you make the community better is by getting involved, and you really are setting an example for that.
Thank you. And it means a lot to me. Why I do it because, like I said, I care. Yeah. I mean, this isn't a lot of it. I do volunteer through it, but I care overall. And I think something I love about Pleasantville politics is it's non-bipartisan. So you create your essentially your party association. So my party that I created was Family First. Yes. Because that was my mindset, in that most of us can all agree on that. Yes. Family first, because we have our jobs, we have our careers, but we always should put our family first and think about each other. And there's always that thought of care that we have. And so a big part of how I ran and my belief and my vision of Pleasantville is being able to be that person who has been here in the old Pleasantville. I mean, I've been here since 1992, and I'm still here, and I'm very engulfed in being able to see the change that is happening, and being able to keep our roots and keep that nucleus of the being neighborly and supporting each other, and not just rejecting change and rejecting. There's going to be a lot of new people that are going to be coming in, and I think it's depending on how we treat them, it's going to be how much more we can keep of a lot of people are saying Pleasantville's losing the small town feel. Sure. Infrastructurally, yes, but the feel itself, that doesn't have to get lost. Right. And that's why they're coming here too. Exactly. But I think also too, it's really important, I've noticed with the people that have been here a long time, I mean, you are interested in the progress of it, of the infrastructure, and honestly, financially, it's how our town will survive. Right. But I think it's important to validate those who feel disconnected. And I think if we can find ways, community events like how you came up with Oktoberfest and all of these little events like Arc Stages, I love our community theater, and all these little things of
ways that we can bring the old and the new together, and they can see that it's not scary to have the crazy Californian come to town or you know, I don't know. I feel like they can see that, hey, I'm here. I want to work too. I want to work to make it, to keep that small town feel, because that's what I came for.
Right.
You know?
That's literally why. I mean, if you look at, obviously in real estate, you can see that that's why homes in Pleasantville are being listed for less than a week, or being sold for
so quickly. Yeah.
You know, for more than what they normally should go, because people want that. And then you look at our schools, Blue Ribbon schools. You know, touche to our Board of Ed. I got Shane here. You know, so it's we shouldn't lose that part.
Right.
And so I think that's my hope, is that I can keep that and remind people that I'm not someone who just came in and is just trying to change everything. I'm somebody that is trying to adapt to the change, but not lose our roots and lose where we came from. Right. Because obviously that's something really important.
And I think the fact is that you're actually doing public service. You are performing a service. It's not, you're not just saying, hey, we need to keep it this way. We need to have progress. But you're actually like, hey, I'm out here doing it with my kids, with like, you know, like you're actually doing it. So I think that one thing, that way we can keep that small town feel, is that if people do get involved, and that's sort of how, you know, I go to the chamber, go to the village meetings, come to PCTV, come up with an idea. There's so many of us that really, I think, are hungry for ideas of how to keep community together. So
yeah, absolutely. There's a lot in the village. You know, I'm putting on my trustee hat. In the village, we have a lot of different committees that are, you know, whatever it is that you're interested in.
Your passion, beautification.
You know, there's a pedestrian committee. There's we have a police engagement committee that, you know, working with the police department. There's so many different things that we could do, and there's always a need for volunteers. And like you said, I mean,
we've seniors, we have the children's rec programs. There's the pool committee. There's so many ways, and not just going on, you know, the Facebook page and complaining about it, but get in, jump in. You can. It's a rewarding experience. I'm going to get off my soapbox now, but anyway, I really,
you're saying is right. That's correct.
Yeah. So come hang out with me and Paul sometime. You'll see us around town. Say hi.
Definitely.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's why. Well,
I wish I could give you a giant hug.
I'm also inviting everyone.
Oh please.
One of my dreams as you know, when becoming an attorney, was to have a law firm here in Pleasantville. So I worked for an attorney since 2008. Her name was Julie Mullaney. She was in Mount Kisco. She practiced for 30 years. So eventually, when I worked there first as a paralegal, and actually I was just an interpreter back in 2008, and then I became a paralegal and the office manager, and you know, that's how I got the push to go to law school. Okay. And and eventually I continued to work for her. I became the managing attorney. And then when she was ready to retire, she sold me the practice. So as soon as she sold me the practice, I knew that I wanted the home of my firm to be here in Pleasantville. So in December of 2021, Julie retired and she sold me the practice. We've been operating now here in Pleasantville. We're on 320 Manville Road. Right next to Farrow's, pretty much. And we've been here since August, but my firm itself has now been operating under my name, which is W. Paul Alvarez PLLC, the law office of W. Paul Alvarez PLLC. We've been operating here. We mostly do immigration, but I do also do traffic court often. So, for example, you get some kind of ticket, whether it's speeding or whatever. You're able to have an attorney go for you and represent you, so you don't have to take off work. The attorney appears on your behalf. And there's a lot of times as attorneys that we can help, you know, with the case, so that possibly you can avoid points or things like that, or avoid a high fine. So we have those services as well.
That's good to know. Yeah.
So my law firm itself will have its official ribbon cutting ceremony on April 8th, 2022.
Tell them.
Yeah. It's ribbon cutting will be on April 8th of 2022 at 4 p.m. here in my office at 320 Manville Road, Pleasantville, New York. We have a page on Facebook. If you look me up, W. Paul Alvarez. I'd love for anyone in the village to come and get to meet me. I'd love to meet you as a business owner, as a trustee, or just as your neighbor, because that's where I've been here for a very long time. So I'm always open to meeting new people. So I'd love to invite everyone to my ribbon cutting here, like I said, on April 8th, 2022 at 4 p.m.
I think it's a really, for me, just hearing your story, that is going to be an emotional day to really have that snip.
I'm going to have to really keep it together because it's...
and I'm assuming your whole family that is so proud of you will be there too.
Yeah, even just thinking right now, I got a bit
emotional. I did too, and I will be there, and I'm excited to meet your family.
Yeah, so. I can't wait for them to meet you guys, and look forward to meeting anyone else that can make it.
Awesome,
it'll be great.
All right,
thank you so much, and thank you to PCTV to keeping the community notified and keeping the community together on finding out what's going on here and what's up Pleasantville.
What's up Pleasantville? All right, well, thank you. See you around Pleasantville.
Thank you.